be my pleasure to present to you today topics regarding the urban scale and some impact from the COVID, the pandemic situation we are living at the moment. I'm Silvia Covarino. I'm associate professor at the German University in Cairo, and I'm an architect, urbanist, an educator, and it's a long time I work in the urban field. Well, what we're going to talk this afternoon is about the topics of the impact in our common space in the city where we are living and the particular condition and situation we are adapting and find a new design, shape and proposal for the next future. Well, this is a bit introduction about the public space, will be my main topics today, and this is topics also my research and my teaching. And just to connect now with some important keyword when you're talking about the public space, okay, is related to identity, people and place, first of all, of course, and use related with the such uses and function, no? And this is a very good diagram. It's connecting also with a larger scale, not only with the simple connection between place and people, and including also, of course, destination, character, creation, the history, memories, connect with identity, no? And it's interesting to see the different value of the different keyword and the different subgroup. And by the way, the relation. Basically, when you're talking about the public space, the place is generally open and accessible to the people. Then, of course, we can go more and more in public, semi-public, semi-private, but this is are things more and more specific. In general, let's say it's a place is open to everyone. Everyone has a right to enter. And usually, it's an open space. But then we will see. We will have such reference about the indoor space. Sorry, there's a technical problem. Can I continue? Okay. Let's continue about the public space as is vital for equitable urban future. This is coming from the recent World Urban Forum in Dubai last February, really in the beginning of the COVID-19, of the pandemic urban time. And there are such keywords. Was a sentence remark, an exhibition there. And there are a few keywords that are really important. I think so. There is no important. Sorry, 1 second. Important keyword are going to remark, no, this character, such space, care, belonging, inclusion, diversity, innovation, culture, safety, prosperity, health, well-being, universal accessibility, and the connection with the UN Sustainable Development Goal 11 especially, can make city and human settlement inclusive and safe, the concept of resilience and the sustainable, with a specific interesting on the target 11.7 for the agenda 2030 in the urban. Then is also sensitive about the green, about the particular for women, children, older person, and person with disability. This is the general vision and the frame in this important forum, exactly in the beginning of the pandemic. About the element we are going to touch, I know most of you are students online. I remember the design camp in February was a very interesting experience, and I can imagine how it's difficult sometimes for you to enter. But to make very simple, let's consider the three important layers when we are touching the urban design, let's say in the scale of the city. Life, and this is meaning people and the space where they're moving, the function, our daily life basically, space, and we are touching the point of the outdoor space and the indoor and the surrounding, the space in between the built area, let's say, and buildings, the place where we are living, the place where we are working, the place we are going for our relax. And these three layers together are generate the management of the public space. Now, Young Girl is one of the best reference in terms of city for people and the space, with the attention to the human scale, especially, And this is one of the very good quote I decided to include in my presentation. Nothing in the world is more simple and more cheap than making city, than provide better for people. Now, if we are focused as an architect, urban designer, interior designer, urbanist and planner and whatever, I know we are really concentrated most of the time in the form, in material, in the color, in the light, but we cannot forget whatever we are going to design is for someone. And the capacity, and the sensitive approach to design a better life for people, and it's something who will be there forever or for a certain time, for the cycle of the building or for the certain age of the city, it's really important with this focus, with the long vision for the next generation too. This is one of the graphic summary of this intention, and the reference as a jungle as a very good reference in contemporary urban design. If you are considered the public life, safe and sustainable, with the attention on the green and the environment especially. And sustainable is not all in terms of green, but also in terms of accessibility. It's attractive, okay? The good public space when the people really want to stay there and living, and the users are using the space healthy, clean environment and good material, okay? And lively is quite different to attractive, because lively means there is a constant and everyday life there. Now, 2020, as mentioned before in the introduction, basically happened something we never lived before, especially my generation, let's say, for the first time we lived a very particular situation, and the world really appeared temporarily closer, suddenly, through this initial alarm from China. And the COVID-19 arrived in the beginning of 2020, probably was running before in October, November, but let's say we start to hear about this and we start to face with this such situation in the beginning of this year. Okay, we start this year in a very particular way. And this is the message, let's say, the impact. Of course, the public space is one of the big issue in this field. And we started with this kind of portrait, from China, from Asia, okay, to have a look at this kind of report. Of course, we get that in the beginning, the alarm of the World Health Organization. But for us, as an architect, as a designer, as a, let's say, the dreamers of the future space for people, especially, basically, we are working in the city, in the urban environment. This was the first impact. Get the portrait to see the city empty. But was especially for now, let's say in the Mediterranean area, Middle East and Europe, this was too far. We were considering maybe it's just a transit time, just a few days or some weeks, and then everything will back to the normal. But this was really only the beginning of the story, and now we are really in the middle of everything. This is show basically, a place usually is live, full people, full life, and also in the top of the economy, because we are talking about a place now with a lot of activity, shop and restaurant and cafe, probably is internal space of a mall, shopping area in Shanghai, suddenly appear empty, and the life stopped, and the world stopped. Then the impact also in the nighttime, daytime and nighttime, and this issue the delivery, because in the area of China where the virus, where the pandemic, where the COVID started, they start to lock the people inside their home. It was impossible to go out, and this issue of order online and get deliveries, it was the few human figure running around the city. Then we start to become familiar with this red point, not only in China area, but we arrive on the situation, cover all especially the urban zone. Let's say this is one of the best website taking care, and it is possible to have a very good data and really update and have a global vision at the same time, day by day. If you are going to consider the layer of the big urban area, probably it's possible to overlap with, this is update on the date of 17 September, 2 days ago, basically, and we can see how at that time the real data of the corona. And as you know, in the classification of the number of cases and the number of deaths, no, let's say USA, Italy was before the zone of this Europe, Spain, and France especially, and in China, if you're going to compare with the previous one, it was the initial one, a very large impact on the balance of the global pandemic. Now, at the moment, is India, these are the Brazil, USA, and such country in Europe, which one really take the number really, really high. Welcome back. I'm so sorry, there is some internet issue. I tried to sort it out, to reconnect. They told me from the... Okay, let me try to repeat. I think I lost the connection here, where we're the, let's say, the mega city and the so dense area, and there is a kind of connection, of course, because the virus, you know, is related with the high concentration of people we are transferring is by the human contact and the distance. We will talk deeply later on the next slide. And here was a zoom in the area where we are. Basically, I'm connected by Cairo today. And let's consider the map of Africa and such country are really effect of the pandemic. And this is a kind of shape of the map where we are able to see the high impact of the COVID there. And there is an influence in Egypt, in Algeria, and in South Africa. This is depending of the number, and then of course quite significant in Nigeria and Ghana. All of these things are related with international connection and with the high touristic, let's say, dynamic, because Egypt is one of the most important in the country. And then probably the urban density, because Cairo is one of the mega city, is the biggest city of Africa, and in Nigeria also Lagos, and also the new economy there connected with the petrol, blah blah, and South Africa because it's really international. And then behind there is a more and more connect with the confirmed deaths. Okay, let's say the registered case, and there is the relation between the case are registered there. I'll come back again. I really try to do my best, but the connection, I think so there is some technical problem from the design camp. Okay, basically I was talking about the impact in the environment. Suddenly we had the possibility also to observe, no, after the lockdown, this reduction of pollution, because the zone in China where the pandemic started, the virus started, the COVID-19 is one of the considered, let's say, the factory of the planet. Then at the same time, regarding the environment, regarding the sanitation, the health environment, we are facing also we start to face in such things regarding, you know, to clean everything, to keep the environment very, very healthy. And this is another of issue, the which one is coming from the environment, but at the same time, all of this chemical and this process of sanification probably is going to contaminate more the environment. Well, some portrait from Asia, okay, and here we can, especially in Wuhan, now we start to see this such situation, wearing the mask, a special protection, and then, you know, people start to keep a certain distance and barrier and limitation inside of the city. Have a look here, was the beginning of how to providing, especially in the mega city. This is a big issue because in the small town, in the little village and community, it's more sustainable. And we started to face also in the problem of the high concentration of people and the huge effect of the urbanization and impact in this pandemic situation. It's a simple portrait in the daily life of people, how they start to come out. And then, of course, in the distance and the problem of a point where the people or the hospital, the health system start to check the people. The urban scenario changed totally, completely. In the streets start a new process like a war situation. Another big issue, the connection, the airport, closing the border, and of course the airport, you know, as kind of city where the high traffic concentration of people from different countries, from one place to another place, become a red point, a red zone of this situation. Then, after this very simple introduction and the general umbrella of the problem, which everybody know, is 1 second. We are, let's say, try to observe and point to the issue of the city without people, because we are facing on the desert city. And after China, I am Italian, I know very well this kind of situation and all the process and impact, believe me, has been in a very, very, very sensitive situation, especially in the beginning, because arrive from the another side of the planet and the huge impact and the high number of people that in the beginning. Well, we start to close the same process, the same situation. And of course, we get an experience from one, and we start not to adapt and to use exactly the same strategy and the same attitude to manage the city. This is a map, okay, except the slogan and the sentence, no, will be closed for a while. We started like that in March. The beginning of the pandemic arrived, curiously, in another so dense area, Milan, and especially in Bergamo, which one is, let's say, is the urban sprawl of Milan related with the factory, related with China, because don't forget, Italy is one of the country, probably the only one with a very high connection import-export with China. And basically the virus arrived there in these very huge industrial areas, business and trade. But suddenly, after 2 weeks, the situation started to go down in the central area, in the coast, and also in this part, of this huge metropolitan area. And then, basically, around 18 March is the day I back from Egypt to my country. We arrive in the lockdown. Well, the position of the government, because of course we are talking about a public space, we are talking about the public health, we are talking about public management and many things. Well, we enter in the lockdown. We enter in the lockdown. Suddenly, after few people get there, okay, and start a new management, a new organization, a new shape, a new portrait of the urban environment, new face of the city, also for us. Okay, was a big advice with the light everywhere. Please, you are invited not to stay at home. And we started like this in March. And of course, Italy, the country of beauty, so famous everywhere for tourism, for architecture, for heritage, especially. Okay, welcome back. I try again to connect. I was here. I'm sorry, probably there is some issue. Okay, the Italian government has imposed a nationwide lockdown completely as an effort to block, and everything was a kind of restriction. Okay, we were possible to go out only for a few things, and basically the country stopped totally. And this is Milan, okay? This is, again, it's not China, but it's a very similar situation. A month later, 2 months later, let's say, we're facing on the same story, on the same impact. This is Venice. Basically, believe me, we never see Venice like that, and we never see a reflection of the building in the very clean water. And the silent city was another aspect, very, very important. And in Venice, it was very particular. Probably you had the possibility to see in such news. We saw the fish come back on the little canal. We never see something like that because the high impact of tourism in Venice never give a possibility to show this kind of clean environment. And this is San Marco Square, empty, totally empty. This is one of the so famous restaurants there, and it's a kind of icon. Okay, take a picture there and postcard of this such king public space, let's say. This is Rome, and it's another impressive situation. Okay, it's the first time we saw the city like, I don't know if you know Giorgio de Chirico, one of the famous painter in Italy in 1920, 1930, more or less. And this is a representative really of the city empty, like a metaphysic, just to see no really the built environment and no people there. This is another Trevi Funta, another icon of the Rome, an icon of a famous movie. And we never saw this such environment, and the Valuk police everywhere, and barrier and control. It's a very, very big change for everyone. This is I'm really sorry. I try to manage this issue. The, the internet connection. There is some problem, I think so. Let me check. Okay. Well, let's come back to the full screen. I'm really sorry about. Okay, we are talking about the railway in Turin, Porta Susa, but impressive again, and Rome again, historical town, so famous. Milan. I don't know if you have the possibility to hear online live the Bocelli concert, which one promoted this lockdown to bring back the people together, and it's very impressive also this such a square. And then we go in extension of the lockdown through the high number of new cases and people that unfortunately more than 35,000 we lost Italy. Yes, the lockdown, stay at home. Now, after this second stage of general portrait of the city and then back in the urban environment, okay, stay at home. This was the scenario of the lockdown. Stay at home. Why? Stay at home, save the life, stay safe. Okay, was the direction for the reason, for emergency, for as a priority, and the community everywhere start to to cooperate and start to to promote and give the message in any form of communication by the social, painting everywhere, writing and sending advice. The life inside. Now, suddenly we didn't have any possibility to go outside and to live our normal day, no working. For who was possible to transform the way to work from from the real face to face. Also me as educator, I was working in smart working modality, but this was not possible for everyone. And imagine the situation all the time at home, locked inside, and depending of the quality of the space. Now, our running outside from the place where we are working, the place where we are living, and the place we are going for our leisure time become in the few square meters. This has become our public space, interior, let's say interior. And this is a portrait. This is like a sketch from some reflection I have found about the pandemic and the lockdown. And behind, on the right side, this is an Egyptian family during the Ramadan, basically, what's happening in our little space. And how was our contact with the city? Just through the window. The window and the balcony become really, really important in the situation. Then become a question as a urban planner, an architect, an urban designer. The Greek city will survive the coronavirus because the huge impact, the people locked inside, and the city become a desert, and the economy stopped. We will touch later also this issue of the economy. All of these situations together generate a kind of new perception, a new impact, and we start to put a question in our mind, start a discussion, the debate also in academia, in the social media and everywhere. Okay, and we try to connect also from the previous experience, because it was not the first time we had this impact, but of course in the third millennium, through the technology, through the social media, and through the population growth, this is another important data, the impact is totally different. And also the number of city and the dimension and the size of this urban density, the which one is really, really impacted. Basically come the comparison now with the Spanish flu in 1980, and we start to compare a certain number and data, and to think about, if you're looking through the history, it's not only the last one, the Spanish flu, but we get more and more if you're going back and back with different number located in a different age. Probably we are going to face more in the next future. We're still inside of the second wave, it's not confirmed yet, but we don't know if the second wave is up and down of the line. But by the way, this is a summary, and this is something regarding our human history. And the impact, have a look at the number. I mean, it's probably is not really too much what we are living at the moment. If you are going to talk in a statistic level, and we are comparing a number, of course, behind this number there is a disaster in the human, in our community especially. Well, people at home, especially for kids, imagine, was something really, really sensitive, go to the school, don't meet each other, stay all the time locked inside. This was the message come out, tutto andrà bene in Italian, everything will be all right, and the people start, okay, in the beginning will be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then we will see. The time to lock it inside become longer and longer. This was a kind of message. People start not to send out a kind of the emotion and needs and behavior, and also the panic and the stress in the situation. This is a kind of interesting map, quarantine pandemic, and now we are start to discuss about how was this effect of the impact, the restriction, the limitation, the lockdown, and a new way to manage our daily life. Okay, and there is a kind of this is from the home, stay at home, all the message between keyword and a 3D representation of the surrounding on the limited distance of the house, let's say our home, our refuge, and the relation with the city. Let's say it's called a survival map, because basically we are praying every day, don't meet the corona and try to survive in this certain situation. The topics of the balcony, as I mentioned before, become an interesting issue for who was able to have a large balcony or some space to come a little bit out of the limit of the house. And also this became a new public space, let's say, because this is basically a way to interact with the people, because our needs is not only to stay at home, but is also not to have a relation with the others. And again, this is the message to andrà bene, as I mentioned before. The people start to, especially the kids, they start to put outside this message, this drawing, this sketching. It's a kind of participatory action. Okay, and this is a simple sketch. People start to come out. Who has a possibility to have any dog and animal at home? And the kids and the talking each other to keep the social contact. This was the big issue. And then, of course, the issue of the music and singing, this is becoming in Italy a very interesting issue. Now, this is our behavior. And, our contact, our capacity as a community, to share and to help each other is a typical Mediterranean attitude. And as Egyptian, and probably from the many regions, most of you can really understand very well what I'm meaning, what I'm talking about. Now, this resilience community is something in our culture, is something in our roots, basically, and it's generated by this mix of influence from all the Mediterranean area, and this capacity not to have an interaction between each other. Have a look, the people try really to keep in contact. And coffee also is an icon of the social life in all the Mediterranean area. And the balcony come through the technology, through the flash mob. The people organize, the kind of meeting a certain time all together, and they try to sing and to participate basically, okay? And the music was another contact, another possibility to really create this virtual and real space. And whatever they get, I mean, probably this guy is a guitarist, it's like expertise in music, is a musician, but the lady, she took whatever she found at home to generate a sound and to participate on the event. This is happening especially in the town, let's say. Again, this is, sorry, it's a double slide. It's a copy of the previous one. The impact. But okay, people at home try to maintain the content, the life, but then at the same time, a huge impact on the environmental aspect, I already mentioned before for China, and then the impact in the economy because the shop closed. And now we are starting to move to return to work little by little when the lockdown become less. And the city, okay, back to the city, back to the normality, try to restart again the normal urban life or the beginning, let's say. But the big issue, the social distance, because during the lockdown was the emergency and the big, let's say, action to separate people and to keep the huge distance to avoid any kind of agglomeration and blah 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 and contamination. But then how to manage back to the normal life and considering the distance with the people? Okay, very complicated. Now the big issue, the summer coming, the holiday and the tourism industry and the huge impact. Okay, everybody started to create a possible solution on the management of this tourism industry, and then especially in the beach, this issue to maintain a certain distance and border and limitation and accessibility. All of these issues are topic for the public space, are not only, okay, let's tell the story of the pandemic, but all of these things are part of our duty. I mean, it's part of the urban design, the landscape design, and whatever regarding the surrounding, the space between the building and the open space. Well, such interesting issue in the beginning to keep any activity. And the first point, of course, go out again for a cup of coffee and stay together with a friend, are three different exaggerated situations. The first one is like a simulation. There are many places empty because you have to keep the distance. It's not possible to cover all the place in a restaurant, cafe, whatever, and stay outside when it was possible to do that. And then separation, create whatever is possible to separate panel and plexiglass and whatever. And then there is another issue, so fun, this issue to cover, to separate only with our dear friend and a couple or part of the family member. With this. These are really exaggerated, and this was, let's say, the initial impact on this reaction. But then, okay, give the space and keep safe and maintain the social distance. This is absolutely important, and it's a basic things to redesign the city, okay? Another issue, wear the mask. Now, two things, distance and wearing the mask. These two things are coming more complicated in the social relationship and in the management of the public space design also. But these things, this is a lesson coming also from the Spanish flu in 1980, and the way to keep the distance and readapt space, because I don't know, theatre, stadium, this such space become a space, readapt, transform, and this is also our public space for indoor activity, but this is, we are talking about public space, which one still empty because it's not possible to have a large number of people gathering in the same place, and are coming as a place for emergency. Now we have to really be prepared, and this is part also from our past, because it's not the first time we are managing it. Believe me, I'm Italian, I'm very familiar with such situation, because we have many natural disasters, and we know very well how to adapt and readapt and use for emergency time this temporary hospital or health center or whatever. Now the distance, okay, the distance, the physical distance, how to manage as architect, how to design, how to organize the space, no, it start to come out better than the previous one I showed you before. This way to fix, to design, to reshape our parks, for example, okay. But at the same time, it's not only, for the parks or for the garden, but at the same time, it's also to maintain. Imagine for many people, like I don't remember if it's already here, the which one are no are working with the social issue. I mean, maintain the distance everywhere in any kind of aspect, okay. Another big point, the transportation and the connection. Little by little we start to come out, or someone was always keep going to work, someone is working now in the basic pharmacy and in the supermarket. But the point of the transportation, in a big city, and the hub of the transportation, a big issue, keep the distance, but then enter in train, and the sanitation, as I've mentioned before, no, two important aspects. And this is such a new portrait of the situation, no, mark the place, use, this distance and position, and move very careful on the huge. Some adaptation, especially in the poor country, okay, where the people really start to be creative, to adapt quickly in all the direction from the World Health Organization. And this has become the scenario, no, of the traditional market, especially in the formal area, no. It looks like a land art, but it's not a land art, this one, but it's simply an organization to protect people, to save the community, no. And this is in India, okay, where there is really a distance marked in the street, where the people must be respect on the way to protect each other. And again, another kind of scenario in India, and this one again applied the measure will be taken to contain the pandemic. Very normal in the supermarket in Europe, anyway, everywhere. This is a portrait from Israel. People are waiting with distance, and keeping using the glove protection and the mask. This is the new scenario. Look, this was a parking area. Now all the place change a bit the use and the this is was the entrance in the school, a new scenario, how to control also the different users and the different age with different attitude. And this is again is wearing the mask and keep the distance. This is in Kenya, and this is the people are attending to renew their contract. Okay, again regarding the market and the street life. Okay, with the distance, with the kind of border. It's not only the distance and mark the place, but it's also a kind of rhythmic and organization, and the barrier and the limitation of the space become more and more. Also in this informal area. Again, the classical queue in the supermarket. This is Las Vegas. As you have a look, it's not only we start in China, Wuhan, and then suddenly arrive in Italy was a very huge and impressive impact. But then the issue regarding everywhere, and the virus arrived, believe me, in any country. Rome, again, this is a queue in front of the pharmacy, and there's a very unusual shell. The religious space, and this is another topic, because after a while, also the church, the mosque, the temple, whatever, I mean, whatever you believe, this has become really complicated and really difficult to meet your community. And this is now are the Jewish also wearing the mask and keep the distance, when they're going to pray in the old city in Jerusalem, is another aspect. This is one of the interesting public space of the Middle East, and is an icon. Again, why retail? Because we were allowed to go out only to buy grocery and this is, have a look how became the space inside the parking area. Everything changed, temporary division, temporary barrier, organization, going in and going out. All of these such topics are topics for the urban design. This is our topics for architect, for interior, okay, for all the communities working in the new shape of the city. People and the social contact, of course, go out for the basic needs during the lockdown and the portrait, but it's also important not to maintain the relationship. And this is simply a conversation in the street, probably they are neighbor. And this is such an extreme situation, let's say in an indoor space with this plastic protection. Now, there is also a creative approach, as I mentioned before. I showed you the 3 cases in Paris and the barrier and the 2 girls covered totally with the plastic. Okay, in Germany, they create a very interesting application of this object to keep the distance behind each other. Of course, this is a kind of, let's say, festival art and provocation, because it's not really possible to go around like this, but just to keep in our mind how the space become, how the distance, the measurement of the street, really interesting. And in the indoor space, like a huge mask become a lamp to keep our gathering in the restaurants and the cafe. How is important to meet our friends and our social. Okay, it's also another provocation in Twitter. I found this one is regarding the Burger King. Okay, we can go together, but no, we have to keep really a distance, and this is another way of of possibility to keep the distance together. Now, this issue of the distance, there are also creative situations like this one, where the people start to invent, to adapt, to self-construction solution and whatever. Such design, let's say, for the restaurant, especially because the coffee restaurant and bar, all the outdoor place and this kind of activity really suffering a lot and still suffering a lot. This is not like a micro box. Again, we are touching the point of limitation and barrier, in which material, in which design, and in which condition, because I don't think so. This one, for example, is a sustainable solution, a comfortable solution in the MENA region. In Egypt, for sure, no, because it's not possible under 40 degrees. Now, the use of the technology is not only to maintain the social contact, to have a large number of people in smart working and keep going to school, education, and all the business activity, but it's also a possibility to protect ourselves, because the way now to use such software and such level of informatic system is a way to get data and to control data. This one is a very sensitive topic, as I know, but we have to learn from such experience, because EVA mobility data is a possibility. This is an example in New York, is a possibility to understand what's going on with distance, to track some reference, okay? And this is, for example, is a study from UK. There's an experimental issue, let's say, they try to control the movement of people. Now it's interesting to see from March how decline is 63% walking and driving 76%, and the transit in general 85% less. All of these graphic results, as a result of research, are working with the possibility to track the movement of people through a special application and elaborate data, let's say human data. Through the data, through the simple data, this is an evolution of this program. I don't remember this one, probably, I don't remember the name. By the way, it's just not get an information and work with the geolocalization of the data, but then is work with cluster and recognize with the urban environment. This is something regarding us as a urban planner and educator. And now is the way to another study from USA, the which one working with the social distancing and the, let's say, the data, the possibility to apply the technology. It's very interesting. It's not a carpet, this one, but it's interesting to see from March to May, March, April, and May, in a time of 3 months for each different area, district, let's say, how was the social distance through the weekly time. And they realized on the weekend was more concentrated. Just a study between the social, inside of the same research and the same study, again from the same group. This is regarding through this first 6 months of 2020 is an index of the social distance. I mean, if the social distance index is very high, this means the people are keeping away. It's another graphic form to represent the, let's say, the new situation where we were in the last 6 months. Okay, social distance during the week, again in 3 different modes, and in the urban and the rural index. As you have seen, in the rural area where the density is very low, is a very, very, very low number, a reference. The best of this kind of application is coming from Korea. And if you have a look of this is an interesting video. The link is here. Sorry, but it was not possible to running the video during this. I was not sure through them and try just to save some screenshot. Okay, this is the graphic is representative now of the confirmed case, and the red line is Korea. Okay, now have a look how the number of cases became stable. Why? Because in 2015, through another pandemic, unfortunately experienced, they try to fix such of application and working with data, and they try to control the pandemic. I mean, the use of the technology and the use of the human data really help them to save people and to save life. Probably this is part of the cultural environment, is part of maybe more than 6-7 years of experience, and another impact. But you have to really think about, because this is a new scenario and a new border for the urban design too. Now, back to the city, space and people designed for a better life. As I mentioned before, we start to talk about back to the normal life. We talked about the social distance and go more deeply with a very good experience, how to manage, especially, this is an experience in Lithuania about, the social distance, how to manage with the touristic aspect. And this is an article, was kind of good, best practice, let's say, to reopen the cafe and to pass from indoor space to outdoor space. Let's say, to come out of your cafe restaurant. When this one was possible, of course, because not for all, and depending also of the season and depending also of the climate condition, because of course in London is not possible like we are able to manage in the Mediterranean area, and also in Italy the same is not possible. Milan we cannot compare with Sicily, where it's possible to really use and have outdoor activity. This is what some study, okay, this way to accommodate more visitors through the data again. Because data are really important, you can see the difference, to how the people become less dangerous the situation, and to manage the possibility to reopen the city. Now the city start to reopen, and and how to manage the situation. Okay, at the beginning, this very adaptation, and this just wear the mask and keep the certain distance, okay? But then as a designer, the situation is very complicated, it's very complex. We're talking about to redesign the sidewalk, the square, the parking lot, and even the street, and how to remanage the economy is running in this issue. Urban planning is crucial, okay? It's very an important tools to work, especially to connect with the public health in the city. This is a manual, okay, a very good and useful reference how to integrate, because, okay, health in the urban and territorial planning, okay, it's not only today for the pandemic, but you have to think differently. And this is a kind of keyword this manual is using, okay, as you know, it's a cooperation of UNHabitat and the World Health Organization to the very good institute are producing a very good reference and guidelines to work on. I took out, this book is available online, the PDF, you can easily download. I don't remember exactly the number of pages, but there are certain interesting issues. Please have a look at the glossary, which one give you an introduction of the language you are going to use in the manual and in the guidelines. Well, here I just have an extract. If the purpose of planning is not for the human and planetary health, then what is it for? As I've mentioned before, as I've mentioned in the quote of Jan Gehl, I mean, it's really important. It's important in the process. It's important for the human health, and part of this process, the basic planning and the legislative standard also is another important issue, because this vision from the people are out of this field. They're thinking we just arrive, we sketch something, we design something. Absolutely no. Maybe it could be that for the artist. I don't know, maybe for the interior, but the architect, and especially as a urbanist for the urban planner, forget about this one. We are working with law, we are working with standard, we are working with regulation, we are working monitoring on data, and without data, we cannot plan any city at all. And then another important things in the chapter 7, for example, the setting of the public space, the outcome, the increasing and the vision for the future, the principle, okay, to manage the design and the plan, and the sector, which one is very important to keep housing, for example, and health, local economy, and health. I mean, consider health as an important aspect for each sector. Let me check if shall I pass another one. Another important reflection when we are talking about a high density, high concentration of people, and of course a different level, and most of the people maybe they lost their job and they become homeless more and more. But if you're talking about health environment, we are talking about pandemic, and absolutely we are going to arrive on the problem of the hygienic resource. This is just an input how in this such situation we are going to manage, and there are such project. I think so. 1 second. Let me. Yes, this is an interesting project. An artist or architect, I don't remember, convert the old bus as a public toilet, okay, for homeless, and it's a very good action because no, it's for San Francisco, where unfortunately in this city we have a very high number, and this is such image and portrait. Also, is portable and it's possible, no, to move from one place to another place, here, because this is what happened. I mean, was also a social emergency in the pandemic. We saw this as such image and impact. People are divided like a packet in the middle, no, of the parking area. Something really, really sensitive, and how the design can give a contribution, how the planning, and again we are touching the point of the distance and the measurement, and to control to save, no, to keep the health environment. But this is a new way to impact with an emergency situation. The topics of the green element, the topics of the parks, the topics of the contact with the nature. It's another important issue. This is a study from Milan, where there is a recognition of the green space and the possibility to rethink, to readapt, to have a look, a new way to think a new future of housing and the size of the house and the connection and the interaction, because this experience of lockdown really got a huge impact also in the real estate. I was reading by the radio in the beginning of May, no one is going to ask any loft anymore to rent in Milan. I mean, the impact of the economy is not only because the shops are closed, we are not going to buy any stuff extra, but the issue regarding everything, especially in the real estate, is very high. And okay, was a reflection about the Milanese public space of the Italian phase 2, and is a recognition of this space. This is happened also in London now. After this such experience, as a planner, we are coming back and we are going to recognize our space, our city, our infrastructure, our system. And this is, for example, is an experience in London in 1943, how they try to back to the city and to recognize the state of the situation and have a kind of social and functional analysis. Again, also this one regarding the issue of mapping the green space, and have a look what is interesting. On the first map on the top, we have all the green space available. On the second one, we have only the space are accessible. Now, another point of reflection, it's really to consider the possibility to get them mass public, okay? Because if all of these spaces are private, there is no way to, in another lockdown or such similar situation, to give a possibility to everyone to enter. Now, my sentence and my introduction of public space, and when it's open for everyone. Now, let's see, because there are many issues in the public space, semi-public and semi-private. Now, we are going on the way to reimagine our city and redesign and reshape. This is a kind of let's say spontaneous, okay, and very simple regarding the interior, just with a very simple drawing and limitation, just tape measurement and put the distance and border and advice. This is a kind of let's say spontaneous public art, let's say, but this is we enter in the concept of another dimension of the space. This is what is really important for us as an architect. This is Instagram page. And now you see, just with a very simple limitation and organization, also through the architectural element of the indoor and the transit space, this is where we are going to to face, not only indoor, but also outdoor in this transit space, the sidewalk between the street and all the shop. And this is a way to redesign a square, very impressive. It's a project about to generate this grid. And sto distante means I will stay far from you, something like that. So no, this is the manifesto, this is the plan, this is the concept. It's like a temporary performance and for a public space. And but it's really let's say a proposal in terms of the COVID and distance. Okay, this is the idea. Okay, keep the distance, fix a modular. Okay. Around 2 meters of the distance, and then the grid system, safe grid, call it, okay, is an open space, and then there is a safe grid that create a kind of aesthetic aspect. The extension of the street, as I've mentioned before, is also another part of the solution for the design and for urban design. This is a solution from Mass Group, if I'm not wrong, or from NACTO, I don't remember exactly. And as the color of this zone, as the space where we have to really think about, and where we see mass design, where we can really, let's say, generate a new solution and can generate a new shape. Okay, it's the space in between, it's the space behind, and it's a space really waiting now for a possibility and solution. Reopening the main street. The main street is the big issue because it's the main problem, where there is a concentration of many activity, and where is how to bring back the people in the downtown. And there are such note and sketch, how it's like a diagram, guidelines, how to manage the restriction, and at the same time how to shape in a good way, how to design. I mean, this is regarding the phase 2 after the lockdown. And this design challenge, I mean, it's not only to propose a new design, but it's really a change on the concept in the standard. And it's a new chapter of the design. Creating the flexed zone. This is one of the good points and principle to use in the urban design, because the possibility to organize and to mix the different functions, at the same time to create a temporary space, okay, and to generate a kind of atmosphere to regenerate our social life after this huge impact, and the interaction between people through a certain design, organization, and division of the function, etc. Relaxing requirements is another important thing, because of course in the urban design is generate a better space for people, and create quickly affordable space, and make space for a new use also. This is another point, to generate a new activity there. Parklets, as a temporary, this is a manual, another interesting reference for that, for the summer 2020, of course. Let's say convert into dining and or congregation area. This is another example, how the parking area, this extension, because they're coming from in to out, and regenerate, and this space of destinate for car, come out for the bicycle. Bicycle is another point. I didn't focus too much on this presentation because I prefer to give a large overview of this issue. And of course, this is the heart of the urban streetscape, and extend atmosphere and aesthetic at the same time, because we are architect, we are designer, we have to think about material, connection, technology, sustainable design, but at the same time, we are talking about planning and take a direction on the organization of the street and the standard for the urban design. This is another project, like, and the way to convert, to readapt, to reuse, for example, as a container, convert into green space. And this is the way to have an adaptive reuse and creative use. Another concept is the distance, and the point. This is an interesting concept in Paris. 15 minutes city, 15 minutes. This is the concept by the sketch and the map. This is come out in the debate of urbanists in City Lab, one of the very good journals to discuss many things about this new scenario in the urban design. Okay, is the way to stay close to your home, to have a sustainable transportation and mobility by bicycle, or you are walking, and to keep alive the area where you are. This is the large sketch on the large map of Paris, okay, Le Grand Paris. There is a kind of recognition of different activity. And this is regarding exactly the concept on the surrounding or where you are, chez moi, okay, from your area and all the little activity, depending of the person, of course, and whatever is possible to achieve in 15 minutes as activity, as a distance, as a shopping or whatever. This is try to apply also in Milan. It's another strategy. Again, in Milan, Paris, this is a big city of the, let's say, the place for this kind of experimental action, let's say. And what is behind of this concept? One second, they are calling me. And this is the computer beyond definition, the interactive space and the social distance at the same time, how to maintain as a urban designer other proposal, other project. For example, this is a design for a square, again with the distance is not super original, but what is important to transform the guidelines and the new instruction in front of the COVID in something we are calling urban design and a proposal, and also this is arrive also in the level of industrial design and detail in the large area in the park. This is the Domino Park in New York, is another proposal. I present also in the beginning a photo, but it's not how to split one to another and with a certain organization kind land art. This one. This is an important reference by Nacto Street Design. Is a good reference for the street design. Absolutely, one of the best in the field of urban. And to the diagram, how is the representation of graphically, in a 3D level, how is coming the different function and activity. This is a very interesting diagram, and this is a manual, which one you can easily download as a PDF, and there are all the instructions for the open space. This is, for example, regarding one aspect for the school streets, okay? There is a general schematic representation with all the instruction, and then there is all the guidelines for the specific point. And this is all the manual and the books are available on the page. And I really suggest to have a look because are really useful for any design studio you are working with the context of the surrounding. This thing, so this is the last two projects more. This is the space of co-working. Now, in front of this change in the social life, on the possibility to have another lockdown, another pandemic, we have started to change the way to see the housing in the future and to see the space of co-working. Now, and they come out of this interesting concept of the pods, of the little element, but it's not only to generate a boxes or container there, but what is interesting is the relationship with the surrounding and each other, because okay, this is the scale of the cities in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, if I'm not wrong, okay, and this is the impact. Look at the size of the infrastructure and the density of the city. But what is interesting relation with the nature and with the landscape, and the deeply study all the different type of vegetation and the rules of this element around, okay, the technical drawing, the plan and the section, quite interesting, the organization, the use of the material, tracing material and plexiglass and window, then we are thinking about it, but the content interaction with the nature and the way it's designed together is really, really important. The indoor space and the outdoor space, like a little city. Of course, this one is a kind of icon, is a kind of prototype, excellent. It's not possible to repeat everywhere. But by the way, if you look into the website, it's very interesting because Eva Luca is the message, healthy workspace as a creative you are, and creative workspace and cultural venue with propose. And there is this contact with the nature and this relationship in the space in between, which one is the topic of the public, in this case, the semi-public space. At the end, this is a project. There is a link below, Biomimesis Design by Serena Fiorelli. She's my dear friend, to be honest. But I was connected with the project of the pod because she's working a very interesting project and a vision for the next future regarding this issue and the design of this element to generate a special new community. You see, this is an interesting concept for the biophilic design, for example. And that's it. This is my presentation. I finished my introduction, my reflection over, and now I'm ready for your question. Thank you so much for listening. Okay, I'm available for any question if you want. I will provide the PDF file to the design camp, and if you have any particular interested in any, there are a few slides with the link. Let me pass very quickly to my presentation. You can contact me, and it will be my pleasure to to help you and share any discussion. Let's see now if there is any question ready. Let me check on the chat. Okay, let me open the chat. Should we design? This is a question from the chat or from Facebook Live. I don't know. There is one question. Should we design all public space in a way spending social distance to be ready all the time for such a pandemic? Okay, this is a very tricky question. Well, we don't have any possibility to have a look at the future very well, and nobody knows. Maybe everything is going to finish. I don't think so through the data in a short time, but for sure we can learn a lesson. For sure we can learn a lesson, and we can keep this experience to design with more responsibility. For us, it's very complicated because when you mention the social distance, we are talking about standard, we are talking about distraction. Now, one thing is just move the table of the coffee bar from inside to outside when it's possible. I mentioned many times on the sidewalk. But when we are talking to manage such certain large surface and space, or maybe hectare, and we are going on the planning scale, the story changing a lot, especially for the mobility, especially for the transportation, especially for the hub where the people are gathering to get a different direction. By the way, this is a tricky question, but this will be our rules in the next future, in the coming future. And you are lucky if you are living this situation inside of the school, because probably your professor, I'm trying to do that, we will help you to face on this issue, because the young architect, or also for us as a professor, we're not getting any very good reference and good lines. You're still in the school environment, and you are really have a good chance to learn a lot from this experience. That's it. I hope the reply is complete and is enough. There is any question more? Let me check. Please, you can process your doubt or your curiosity or your. Okay, I got a message from the organization. There is no question more, and I think so. I can close here my lecture. I will pass to them the PDF and my contact, and please don't hesitate to contact me by mail or by the social. It will be my pleasure to see you, by the way, next Saturday, because we will have another presentation, but this is regarding the perception of the city. Okay. Thank you so much for all the attendance. I'm so sorry it's not an interactive session, and so sorry for the internet connection, but I hope you can have something to reflect on. Have a nice evening to everyone. Bye-bye.